Okay. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Coach for an opening comment, and then we'll take your questions.
Good afternoon, everybody, and good to see everybody. Hope everybody's safe. I'd like to really get started by mentioning the loss of one of Illinois' family in Illini basketball. Jimmy was obviously a guy that was a very popular figure, a part of our family, well respected in so many circles. Not just in this state and in this program, but in the world of basketball. And our thoughts and prayers are with his family. And you know, it's a tough year when we're losing two of our greats, and Lou and Jimmy, and everything that they had done to build this program. So first of all, I'd like to start there, and our thoughts are with them. So and then you know, coming off the Missouri game, a game that was unique in the fact that we fouled a lot. It was uncharacteristic. It was something that we really didn't foresee that kind of problem coming. I think we're 114th in the country now in foul rate, which is extremely high, considering we were 13th last year. We were responsible for 28 points at the foul line and just transition breakdowns in the first half. And when we make teams shoot contested shots, we're really good. The defensive efficiency was a 0.6, which is off the chart, shooting contested shots. But we can't make mistakes by fouling. And then they hurt us in transition, which is something we had not been hurt by. So obviously, you compound that with missed free throws, and it turned into a struggle just to get back in the game. Ayo was phenomenal. Ayo did what the best player in the country does. You know, when your team's down, we put the ball in his hands, and he went and got us baskets. He drew fouls and created an opportunity for us to get back in the game. And I think Ayo is the third most efficient player in the country, behind Garza and Trace Jackson Davis right now, and he proved that. But you know, it was a frustrating night, and I always revert back to a mental focus and preparation when we missed free throws, and you know, that's one of the things that we can't do as we move forward here in league play. But now it's on to Big Ten play, a Minnesota team that got very old with all transfers. They returned one of the best guards in the country, and Marcus Carr, and they're a team that is obviously undefeated. They're playing well. They've got a center in Robbins who is, in my opinion, he's excellent. I think he's one of the top guys in our league. At 7 foot, can step out and shoot it. He's been a terrific shot blocker for them early. And then the young man from Utah, Bach, is an active wing who gives them a secondary ball handler. So you know, this is a very, very good basketball team, and Richard's done an excellent job, you know, in putting this team together, and they've gotten old really quick with all their transfers.
Okay, Scott Beatty, you'll lead us off.
Hey, Brad. First of all, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's been a couple of birthdays here now you get to spend with the media, so I'm sure it's the highlight of your day.
It ranks right up there. It does. It's always good to see friendly faces.
Going back to the fouling, was that an issue where it was just a game being called tighter, or when you look back at it, were teams on both sides just committing more fouls for whatever reason? You
know, it was. I can look at a lot of different things. We fouled. We committed some bad fouls. You know, we committed some fouls that we cannot commit on live ball dribbles when they're not going to shoot. You know, that being said, Scott, you know, I'm really frustrated with the way Koffi's being officiated. I think it's hard because he's 300 pounds. He gets hit. He gets smacked. there's multiple occasions where they're grabbing his arm and he's still finishing. There's 2 occasions he's in the air for alley-oops and he gets pushed, but because he doesn't flail out of bounds because he's not 185 pounds, he doesn't get those calls. That I'm getting frustrated with, and it's not fair to the young man. It's sure not fair to our team. But we did foul, and we committed bad fouls, and that's the thing we've got to eliminate. We committed fouls just, being uptight, and they just wipe through, and we reach in and foul, and we can't commit those.
If you can't speak to it, I understand. Did you get any explanation on the flagrant one?
None. None of those guys are Big Ten guys anymore. They've all left our league, so they were SEC officials, so you don't turn them into anybody. It was their game, and Weimer and Terry Olson have left our conference and doing specifically SEC games now. So they work for the other guy, but it was there were more than a few that were that raised an eyebrow, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Coach, going into the non-conference, you talked about wanting to find out how your team would be exposed by other teams. Maybe not weaknesses, but what have you learned about your team that you really need to work on based on the non-conference?
Yeah, we've got to be in a position, and it's one of the things we're going to get challenged with tomorrow night. Minnesota's top 15 in fouls drawn. I think that's one of the areas that we've got to shore up defensively. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We faced very, very good guards. We faced, that's the one thing we've done in this non-league. We're not going to sit back and be undefeated because we've played a soft schedule. We found out our warts. We found out who we are. We played, 3 of the best teams in the country, in my opinion, and maybe 4 with Ohio. So we faced great guards. We faced legit size. And I think it's now just, starting to fine tune some things, and we'll continue to do that. Obviously this is a quick turnaround after the Missouri game, but at least we know we've got some things we got to work on both ends of the court.
Real quick, with the 2 freshman guards, normally freshmen, you get to throw them out there and play them, but when they join a top 10 team, how much do you balance the growing pains of freshmen being out there with, you need them to get better, but you also need to maybe go with experience?
Yeah, when we've talked about that at length with our guys, and we're playing young guys. We're playing 3 of them, and 2 are seeing significant minutes, and their maturation has to happen much quicker, and yet it's you got to expect some ups and downs, and we're living through that. They're trying to figure out what this game's all about at this level in terms of the intensity, and now seeing scouting and somebody actually scheming them, and then somebody going at them, and that was the case the other night. It was just a constant challenge that way. So we'll they're growing up and having to learn on the fly, and in the meantime our veterans are going to have to continue to be the lead and take charge of that.
Thank you.
Brandon, you're up.
Hey, Brad. This season, I think it's fair to say that opposing lead guards have kind of had success against you guys. After watching film a bit, what do you kind of attribute that to, and what can you guys do better to contain them?
They're good guards. They're really good players. There's pros. You can guard the hell out of pros, and they're still going to make baskets. I think we've got to do some things better on the ball. I think the one thing that we've been challenged by is teams that have had secondary and even third ball handlers. We've been pretty solid, other than maybe the Ohio game, and our ball screen coverage was atrocious that game. But we've made some tweaks in that, and I think we've been better in those areas. It's sure going to get tested tomorrow because Marcus Carr is terrific. So, again, I think it's guarding the basketball better is where everything starts, especially on the defensive end.
And then speaking of Carr, you guys did a really good job on him last year, limiting him to 3 of 12 shooting, but he's kind of taken a leap this year. So what have you seen from him so far?
Well, his roles changed on their team. Last year he was a he was kind of a secondary and third option, and they were playing differently because of the big kid and Arturo but I think that we've got to keep bodies in front of him. We've got to keep walls up around him. He's great when he gets an angle. He's shooting the ball different. He's got the ultimate never-ending dribble. They just let him dribble the ball. There's possessions. He'll dribble it 15, 16, 17 times until he gets that angle. And then when you've got other good players around him, which they do in Robbins and they shoot it and on the wing spots. So those guys create some space for him.
Sky Ritchie and then Piper.
Hey, Brad. It's still obviously kind of a small sample size with just 6 games, but is there more or anything differently you would like to see from Koffi at this point?
My expectation level is so high for Koffi. He has a hard time meeting it. And I think that one of the things that we keep challenging him with is out of the area rebounding, being a guy that has an extremely high motor, and doing some of those things. He's playing great. He had an inconspicuous 19 the other night, and went against one of the top defensive centers in the country in Tillman. And if he makes a few free throws the other night, we're talking about what an elite performance he has, and you don't ask that question. And I keep wanting more and more and more, and I keep pushing him. And I told him that yesterday in practice that that's how I coach. But he's playing great. He's going to have big nights, and he's been outstanding to this point.
Yes. As a follow up to Jimmy Collins, did you know him before you got to Illinois at all?
Oh yeah. We played in a tournament. I actually got to spend a good amount of time with Jimmy early when he was an assistant here with Lou. And he recruited one of my players. They recruited a young man when I was a junior college coach. He ended up going to Pittsburgh, Willie Cauley. It was Willie Cauley-Stein's dad. And was a terrific player. And Jimmy did all the recruiting. I spent a great amount of time with him then. And then we were in a tournament when he was the coach at UIC in Missoula, Montana together, and spent a good amount of time together. And then just through the coaching ranks, and recruiting and so on, we've known each other for a good amount of time.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, one follow-up on Koffi. He's had some issues with his hands at times. I know we saw some of that last year. Is there anything you can do to work with him on that and kind of address that issue? Yeah,
we do it every day. I mean, those are things that, we throw balls at him. I mean, and I think it's one of the things, Derek, that, we do toss back work. It's one of those things that he'll catch anything when you're in those drills. And then it's a matter of now he's seeing stuff coming at him a little differently, especially from Curbelo. And Curbelo puts the ball in different spots and in different areas. And that takes a little chemistry to get used to. And again, he's got to grab him. There's no excuse for that, but we continue to work at it. He's got really strong hands. I mean, you don't go and just knock a ball out of his hands if you're swiping at him, but it's just maybe a little preparation and concentration, especially when Curbelo has the ball.
The post-Missouri stretch last year was really important for your team, and traditionally you get that week to come up for air, kind of reevaluate some things. How do you get some of that same growth? Is it possible with so many games upcoming?
Well, and this week's especially challenging because we're in finals. Today and tomorrow we've got, and Wednesday we actually are playing games during finals, which has never been done before. But I know our guys had a heavy load today of finals and classes, and so yeah, it's much different, Derek. There's not those breaks this year. And, it will help a little bit once we get through finals and we get out of our 20-hour weeks that we're restricted to while we're still in classes. But yeah, and I still think we'll have a lot of improvement. We'll have a lot of time. We'll be able to get guys over to shoot more and do some of those things that we're now restricted by because of the NCAA rules. So we'll see some gain, but it's obviously a lot different now with, playing games through the Christmas break and through finals.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, Soupy, then Jeremy Werner.
Hey, Coach, can you just kind of critique the start that Kofi's had to the season, and what would you see him like to take a step forward with?
Yeah, I mean, he's been good. I mean, he's right at the top of everybody's scouting report. He draws a ton of attention. Every time he rolls, you'll see tomorrow night, everybody in the world's going to chuck him and hit him, and they tag off people, and he's always got bodies around him. I do want to see him chase more basketballs. I want his motor to run faster in balls that are just going and chasing it, just going and getting it. And I think that's the next step for him. And again, it was a different off season. He's continuing to work left-handed stuff all the time. He's got much better with that. But yeah, he's made some nice improvement, and he's just is just drawn a ton of attention.
Hey, Brett, I just had a bigger picture question. Obviously, you guys are just starting to get going with the season, but how have the players dealt with everything with COVID, the pandemic, just mentally? And what do you guys do as a staff to help them, through all of this?
One, we talk about it a lot. We don't ignore it. I think that's one of the things that, we've tried to identify with. Obviously there's a lot of grave concern out there right now, Jeremy, with the young man at Florida and what his status is. All of those guys in our locker room played AAU against him and know him. And, and everybody's concerned about whether that's a COVID related situation or not. The one thing I do think has happened, I think our group has become closer because they have to. And whether they're playing cards or they're playing games, they're spending all their time together, and I think that's really helped. We weren't able to do some of our team building activities this year because of COVID, but we talk about it a lot. And obviously, the little breaks that we get. I mean, it's challenging. We've talked about not having families present, not being able to go home at Christmas. Not having family come to games. Those are all things that are different and unique. We don't run from it. We talk about it, and then we try to do something like we did on the for the starters that game. Have their families introduce them, and we'll continue to look and do some things around Christmas that can present a little bit of a relief and different. But to be honest, Jeremy, it's hard as heck to plan activities for teenagers socially when there's nothing to do and there's nothing you can go do, and you can't have them at your house, or you can't have, it gets to be a challenge. So we talk about it and identify it and tell guys that, they've got to work through it, but it's definitely not easy.
And then I know you're focused on yourself, but obviously, Lovie no longer the football coach. Just what was your relationship like with him as the two obviously faces of this program the last couple of years, and what will you remember about your time?
Yeah, Lovie's I've got so much respect for Lovie. Tremendous human being. I think he was a great leader of men. I respect the fact that what all he's accomplished. We always had great talks about East Texas, having worked there, and him having grown up in that area and being very familiar with it. And he would go back there in the summers and recruit. And he was actually in Nacogdoches a few times, and would give him some good burger spots and barbecue spots there. And yeah, it's always a sad day. As fellow coaches, you hate to see people not be successful or become unemployed. That's tough. And, but the one thing I know is I'll always have a friend, and we'll continue to talk through this process and beyond.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett.
Matthew Stevens, you're up.
Hey, Brad, about Carbello, as a coach, do you kind of maybe have to live with a turnover here or there because he's so elite with the ball and what he can do in transition, and you just kind of go, hey, I'll take that because he can do something that 99% of other guards maybe can't do, with the basketball in his hands?
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm always going to do that, but especially as a freshman when he's growing and learning, I understand there's the one thing that I never want to do is pull the reins back on him. I want to let him go. His instincts, as you guys know or don't know, but will get to know. I mean, he's a basketball savant. He thinks the game like I haven't seen another player think it and study it. And when we go over scouting reports, you grab his scouting report afterward, and it's filled with notes. And he's watching the game, and he just sees it at a place that very few people ever get to. So I would be foolish if I did that. But yeah, he's, as frustrating as they may be sometimes, I'm not going to pull the reins back on him.
Follow-up is he made an interesting comment to us last week, which is he thinks officials are eventually going to have to adjust to him. I rolled my eyes at that because in the history of this league, I don't think that's ever happened, like for any player. I don't care who it is.
Well, I mean, and to his point, we've gone through a couple of his travels, and they're not travels. They just look really weird. And you don't see people do those. Now, he's got one move that is a travel, and we've had to correct that. But and he's got all of these underhand deliveries and scoop shots, and he had a ball the other night, in the Missouri game. I mean, it was foul. The guy just about broke his wrist. But people are in shock a little bit because, well, that was a shot attempt, but that's a shot he makes. And so I don't think people will adjust to him, but I think they're going to have to get used to some of the quirky or different things that he does.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, Alec.
Hey, Brad, happy birthday. I asked you after the game against Mizzou about getting other guards involved. Going back and looking at some of the film, have you noticed that Ayo maybe needs to get more guards involved or trust his guards a little bit more in certain situations offensively?
Well, that didn't have anything to do with Ayo. That was, we were behind, and we gave the ball. I gave the ball to the best player in the country's hands and said, "Go get us baskets." And I mean, Ayo is one of the most efficient players in the country. And for anybody to assume that statement that he doesn't get anybody involved, I mean, he's had games 8, 9 assists. He's one of the few, I think maybe the only player in the country with, certain X amount of points, assists, and rebounds. And he's one of the most unselfish kids he's done. That's me asking him to go get us a bucket. We put the ball in his hands, and he's an elite scorer. That's what he does, but he's also an elite passer and has great vision. And the most important thing about him is nobody wants to win more than him. He'll make the right play whenever that is.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, Mark Pearson, and that'll wrap us up.
Hey, Coach, happy birthday. As far as the Big Ten season coming up, you've always said this is what it's all about for your team. Is it maybe a fresh air to have that start up tomorrow?
I don't know. I woke up this morning and I thought, oh my gosh, 20 of these things. That's what we play for. We play for a Big Ten championship. That's we've never shied away from that with any of our teams here. That's the goal. If you're good enough to win a Big Ten championship in this league, you got a chance to win the national championship. And it's 20 long, grueling nights. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be hiccups. That doesn't have anything to do with COVID. That just has to do with an elite league, with elite teams, with elite players and elite coaches. And we've got to grind for the next 3.5 months. But yet it is exciting because there is a different air about these games, and there's a different feel, and there's a little more familiarity with opponents and the name across the front. So it makes it all exciting, and it makes it all very very challenging, and it gets to be very tedious at times, but yeah, that's what we're here for.
Appreciate your time. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Okay, we are headed to film, so that'll wrap us up for today. Reminder, we'll have Koffi on after practice for our